It is possible to install a bathroom if the service panel is located in the basement beneath it, provided several conditions are met. Firstly, ensure adequate wiring. The electrical wiring from the service panel to the bathroom must be sufficient to handle the increased electrical load of the whirlpool or shower combo. This typically requires running new or upgraded wiring to accommodate the additional load. Secondly, implement proper circuit protection. The circuit powering the whirlpool or shower combo must be protected by a dedicated circuit breaker or fuse of the appropriate amperage. This ensures that the circuit does not become overloaded, reducing the risk of electrical fires. The size of the breaker or fuse will depend on the power requirements of the whirlpool or shower unit, so consult the manufacturer's specifications. Thirdly, provide ground fault circuit interrupter (GFCI) protection. All electrical outlets within 6 feet of the whirlpool or shower combo must be protected by a GFCI. This device senses electrical imbalances, which could indicate a ground fault, and quickly cuts power to prevent electrocution. GFCI outlets are easily identifiable by their test and reset buttons. Fourthly, ensure adequate ventilation. The bathroom must have adequate ventilation to prevent moisture buildup and mold growth. This can be achieved through natural ventilation, such as windows or vents, or through a mechanical exhaust fan. The exhaust fan should be sized appropriately for the size of the bathroom to effectively remove moisture. Fifthly, maintain accessibility. The service panel must remain accessible for maintenance and repairs. This means that the bathroom layout cannot obstruct access to the panel. There should be sufficient clear space in front of the panel to allow for safe and easy access for electricians or other qualified personnel. Regarding code compliance, building codes vary by region, city, and even sometimes by neighborhood. To ensure compliance with current code requirements, it is advisable to consult with a qualified electrician or building inspector before making any changes to the electrical system or bathroom layout. They can provide guidance on the specific requirements in your area and ensure that the installation meets all applicable safety standards. Based on the information provided, it is possible to install a whirlpool or shower combo in the bathroom, subject to meeting the above conditions and any applicable building codes. When considering the electrical wiring, remember that the National Electrical Code (NEC) provides specific guidelines for the installation of electrical systems in bathrooms. Article 210.8 of the NEC addresses GFCI protection for personnel in dwelling units, including bathrooms. This section requires GFCI protection for all 125 volts, 15 amps and 20 amps receptacles installed in bathrooms. Additionally, Article 430 of the NEC covers motors, motor circuits, and controllers, which may be relevant if the whirlpool or shower combo has a motor. Article 440 of the NEC covers air conditioning and refrigeration equipment, which may also be relevant if the unit has a heating element or other refrigeration-related components. Furthermore, consider the requirements for bonding and grounding. Proper bonding and grounding are essential for electrical safety and to prevent electrical shock hazards. Article 250 of the NEC provides detailed requirements for grounding and bonding electrical systems. It is important to ensure that all metal parts of the electrical system, including the service panel, wiring, and equipment, are properly bonded together and grounded to a grounding electrode system. This helps to create a low impedance path for fault current to flow back to the source, which will trip the circuit breaker or fuse and de-energize the circuit. Regarding the specific electrical requirements for the whirlpool or shower combo, consult the manufacturer's specifications. These specifications will provide information on the voltage, amperage, and wattage requirements of the unit, as well as any specific wiring or grounding requirements. It is important to follow the manufacturer's instructions carefully to ensure that the unit is installed safely and correctly. When upgrading the wiring, consider the size of the conductors. The size of the conductors must be sufficient to carry the load of the whirlpool or shower combo without overheating. The NEC provides tables that specify the allowable ampacity of conductors based on their size and insulation type. Table 310.15b16 in the 2020 NEC, for example, provides ampacity ratings for insulated conductors rated up to 2000 volts, 60 degrees Celsius through 90 degrees Celsius. Also, consider the type of wiring method used. The wiring method must be suitable for the environment in which it is installed. In a bathroom where moisture is present, it is important to use a wiring method that is resistant to moisture and corrosion. Common wiring methods for bathrooms include non-metallic sheath cable, such as Type NMB cable, and rigid metal conduit, such as E&T conduit. When installing the wiring, follow the NEC requirements for spacing and support. The NEC specifies the maximum spacing between supports for different types of wiring. For example, non-metallic sheath cable must be supported every 4.5 feet and within 12 inches of every box or fitting. When installing electrical boxes, ensure that they are properly sized and rated for the application. Electrical boxes must be large enough to accommodate the wiring and devices installed within them. The NEC specifies the minimum size of electrical boxes based on the number and size of conductors entering the box. Regarding the installation of the GFCI, follow the manufacturer's instructions carefully. GFCI outlets are relatively easy to install, but it is important to follow the instructions to ensure that they are wired correctly. When testing the GFCI, use the test button on the outlet. If the GFCI is working correctly, it should trip and energize the circuit. Regarding ventilation, ensure that the exhaust fan is sized appropriately for the size of the bathroom. The Home Ventilating Institute, HVI, recommends that exhaust fans be sized to provide at least 8 air changes per hour in bathrooms. This means that the fan should be able to exhaust the entire volume of air in the bathroom 8 times per hour. Also, consider the location of the exhaust fan. The exhaust fan should be located as close as possible to the source of moisture, such as the shower or bathtub. This will help to remove moisture before it has a chance to spread throughout the bathroom. When installing the exhaust fan, make sure to vent it to the outside. Do not vent the exhaust fan into the attic or crawl space, as this can lead to moisture buildup and mold growth. Regarding accessibility, ensure that there is sufficient clear space in front of the service panel to allow for safe and easy access for electricians or other qualified personnel. The NEC requires a minimum of 3 feet of clear space in front of the service panel and a minimum of 30 inches of width. Also, ensure that the service panel is not obstructed by any permanent fixtures or equipment. When planning the bathroom layout, consider the location of the service panel and make sure that it is easily accessible. In summary, installing a bathroom above a service panel requires careful planning and attention to detail. By following the NEC requirements and consulting with a qualified electrician or building inspector, you can ensure that the installation is safe, compliant, and meets all applicable codes. Remember to prioritize safety and to always consult with qualified professionals before making any changes to your electrical system or bathroom layout. It's essential to have a permit pulled for this type of work, so that the city or county inspector comes by to verify the work completed meets minimum code. This protects the homeowner and any future owners. If there are any issues down the road, it is good to know the work was completed properly. It can be difficult for the homeowner to verify the work meets code, as there are many nuances in the electrical code. For example, one thing an inspector looks for is whether the proper wire nuts are used. The wire nuts need to be listed for the amount of wires used. Another example is that the number of wires in a box is limited by the size of the box. These are two very minor, but important issues to verify. There are many other things to check. These are also life and safety issues. It is also a good idea to take pictures of the wiring before the walls are closed up. This may help in the future if any other modifications or troubleshooting needs to happen. Before starting the project, it is recommended to create a detailed plan that outlines the scope of work, materials needed, and the timeline for completion. This plan should be reviewed by a qualified electrician or building inspector to ensure that it meets all applicable codes and regulations. The plan should also include a list of all electrical components that will be used in the project, including the whirlpool or shower combo, wiring, circuit breakers, GFCI outlets, and exhaust fan. It is important to select high-quality electrical components that are listed by a recognized testing laboratory, such as UL or ETL. The electrical components should also be rated for the environment in which they will be installed. In a bathroom where moisture is present, it is important to use electrical components that are resistant to moisture and corrosion. The plan should also include a detailed wiring diagram that shows how all of the electrical components will be connected. The wiring diagram should be reviewed by a qualified electrician to ensure that it is accurate and meets all applicable codes and regulations. Before starting any electrical work, it is important to disconnect the power to the circuit that will be worked on. This can be done by turning off the circuit breaker or removing the fuse that supplies power to the circuit. It is also important to test the circuit to make sure that it is de-energized before starting any work. This can be done using a voltage tester. When working on electrical wiring, it is important to wear appropriate personal protective equipment, PPE, including safety glasses and gloves. Safety glasses will protect your eyes from flying debris, and gloves will protect your hands from electrical shock. It is also important to use insulated tools when working on electrical wiring. Insulated tools will help to prevent electrical shock. When making electrical connections, it is important to use the correct type of connectors. The connectors should be listed for the type of wire that is being used, and they should be installed according to the manufacturer's instructions. It is also important to make sure that the connections are tight and secure. Loose connections can cause overheating and electrical fires. When installing electrical boxes, it is important to make sure that they are properly grounded. Grounding the electrical boxes will help to prevent electrical shock. It is also important to make sure that the electrical boxes are securely mounted to the wall or ceiling. Loose electrical boxes can cause damage to the wiring and can also be a safety hazard. When installing wiring, it is important to follow the NEC requirements for spacing and support. The wiring should be supported every 4.5 feet and within 12 inches of every box or fitting. It is also important to make sure that the wiring is protected from physical damage. Wiring that is exposed to physical damage should be protected by conduit or other suitable means. When installing GFCI outlets, it is important to follow the manufacturer's instructions carefully. GFCI outlets are relatively easy to install, but it is important to make sure that they are wired correctly. It is also important to test the GFCI outlet after it is installed to make sure that it is working properly. When installing exhaust fans, it is important to make sure that they are properly sized for the size of the bathroom. The exhaust fan should be able to exhaust the entire volume of air in the bathroom 8 times per hour. It is also important to make sure that the exhaust fan is vented to the outside. Do not vent the exhaust fan into the attic or crawl space, as this can lead to moisture buildup and mold growth. After all of the electrical work is completed, it is important to have it inspected by a qualified electrician or building inspector. The inspector will make sure that the work meets all applicable codes and regulations. The inspector will also test the electrical system to make sure that it is working properly.